What is up, YouTube? It's your boy ChasmRift here, and today I'm bringing a video that's long overdue, but I promised, and it was the Milwaukee Regionals recap. So for those who knew, and for those who didn't know, I went to Milwaukee. I was there from June 17th all the way to the 19th, and I was competing at the regional they had. So yeah, I competed, and I'm just making a recap video. It took me a few weeks, but there's a couple of reasons why. First, the North American International Championships were a week after, so I just didn't want to divert anyone's attention away from that or any of the competitors out there. If they would have watched this video, get any inspiration, I was like, nah, I didn't want to do anything, I didn't want to cause any ruckus, so I was going to wait for that. The second reason was involving work and just my overall day-to-day. I've been working weird schedule, it's been very inconsistent, and I just didn't find enough time to just sit down and do this. I had opportunities, don't get me wrong, as you guys saw I was streaming, but there just wasn't any good opportunities in my mind to just sit down and present this in the way I would like to have it presented. The third reason was I was a little bit lazy, like I just alluded to. And the fourth one was I just felt a certain type of way, and I wanted to give it some time to just think and figure out what I want to do next. And I'm glad for that, because what I'm going to say today is different than how I was initially feeling when I initially wanted to make this video. So anyways, let's get into this. As you guys know, it's probably the 4th of July weekend as I'm making this. So if you're hearing fireworks outside, yeah, we just got to deal with it. Okay. So, this is the team that I built right here. It is Zacian Kyogre team, or what we like to call it, Wet Dog. And I went this mode because when I went to Indianapolis, I was very disappointed with how I played. I took a risk in trying out Groudon, Kieran White, and I thought it was actually a good risk in terms of these Pokemon fare very well against the meta. They cover a lot of their own weaknesses, and they cover a lot of ground when it comes to overall matchups. So I was willing to take that risk. But then when we actually got into the regionals, my Groudon was impressive as Blades. We were having some awkward matches when it came to just weather interactions. And I just wanted something that was a little bit more rooted and something that could just give me a little bit more consistency to what was being played in the meta. So I decided I was going to try out Kyogre because I just haven't tried out Rain during Series 12. And I just wanted a Pokemon that had at least one, a restricted had at least one attack that was guaranteed to be 100% accurate, which is in Water Spout for Kyogre. So yeah, this is the team right here. I think I took some notes about it. I tried out Kairou's Life Orb Kyogre, and then I went to Brandon Badden's 30th place Indian AV Kyogre team. I'll hopefully remember to put the paste down below, but yeah, I'm gonna have the paste down below for this team before I try it out in Showdown. Hopefully I remember to put like the rental code for this team. May want to try it out. I do have to warn you, since the meta shifted again. I've been out of the loop for a couple weeks and the meta has already shifted. That's something to keep in mind as we go through with this video. So yeah, keep that in mind. This team is kind of already outdated. That's kind of going to be a theme about what we're going to be talking about today. So anyways, we'll just start from top to bottom, left to right. Zacian. I went with the Zacian right here. I forget which mode I went with. I think this came from just the same top 16 team that I just took it off of, ripped it up. I adjusted the EVs a bit to just give me a little bit more oomph when it came to certain matchups. I just didn't like how the Zacian felt being bulky but still missing out on KOs. So I just adjusted it in a way that will allow me to have the ability to outspeed Regieleki when hits +1 and to just give me just nice matchups overall. I also ran Substitute just to give me a great answer, and I mean a great answer, to the Trick Room matchup. So when I first built this team, I said it on stream, I said it in DMs to friends, in my own Discord, like, hey, I need help with the Calyrex Ice matchup. My team was just not good against Calyrex Ice under Trick Room. And then I was watching Sableye VGC play. Cool Cat. He was also running a team Wet Dog, and his Zacian has Substitute. So then I tried it out. Worked great. In fact, we had a very positive win-loss ratio when it came to Trick Room matchups, especially against the Calyrex Ice. So that's why Substitute was there. Kyogre. Like I said, I tried out a variant that had Life Orb, and I just didn't like how it felt. I wanted the extra bulk that it was missing, so I ended up going with the Assault Vest variant. This is a pretty standard Kyogre, I want to say. This ran Origin Pulse, Water Spout, Thunder, Hyper Beam. I ran Hyper Beam, led me to, get speed drops on the opponent. Like this team, we were lacking speed control, so I just wanted us to have a good way to just get out speed control in the event that Grimmsnark will come out there or Zapdos wasn't a good Dynamax option. So I ended up going with Max Strike on Kyogre, and it kind of did pay off. I was very pleased with the Kyogre. Just for anyone who didn't know, Kyogre was hitting his O-pulses. I think we missed like 1 or maybe 2, but ultimately they didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, I was very happy that Kyogre showed up at when it came to playing in Milwaukee. Our Grimmsnarl right here, Grimmsnarl, this one was very, very important to what was going on with the overall game. We had dual screens and Scary Face. That meant that we could lower the speed of electric types. If we were in Trick Room, we could lower our own partner speed with Scary Face. And I just like that tech option over Thunder Wave. While Thunder Wave would have been nice to have in just overall crippling Pokemon for the long run, I just wanted to play in the moment type of deal. And then we ran Foul Play to give us great damage against things like Thundurus, Incarnate, Zacians, or to just be a nice consistent answer without having to worry about, damage calcs. And then I gave it Berry, and I gave it 140 defense at 236 HP, just so it could live a Behemoth Blade comfortably for most Zacians. If it didn't live it, either it was a crit, or they're running something extremely wild, like maybe an Adamant Zacian, I guess. So yeah. Next on the list is our Zapdos with the Life Orb, and we're running Static. So the IVs, we'll get into that in a little bit later. But I was running my Shiny Zapdos, just like my Kyogre. So its attack IVs were actually not at 0, just to keep in mind for everybody watching this. We were running Thunderbolt, Hurricane, Heatwave, Eerie Impulse, and we're running almost standard 252, 220 special attack variant. Like I said, most of this team I was ripped from the teams that are playtesting or just seen from Victory Road, and I just like how they felt. I got no real complaints about the Zapdos. It came in, did its job. The Eerie Impulse mattered for a lot of the special, threats that we faced in tournament, and it's just a really nice tech option to have, especially when we're outside of Dynamax. And it gives us a max guard whenever we do Dynamax, because as you can see, a lot of the Pokemon on this team are lacking a Protect move. And then we were in Scrappy. This is our standard Cobra Berry variant that we've been running for a while. I dropped Crunch on Scrappy for Throat Chop for 2 reasons. One, I didn't want to activate Defiant or Competitive for any Pokemon out there in the event that I did use Crunch on them, because I've actually had some bad luck when it comes to tournament play, and I've actually given stat drops to the opponent. And also, Throat Chop is just a great way to stop Parting Shot, because Parting Shot is a sound-based move, as well as still being able to one-hit KO a Calyrex Shadow Rider. And then we got Ferrothorn right here, and Ferrothorn, this was a beauty right here. Ferrothorn was running Gyro Ball with the 0 speed IVs, Relaxed Nature. I had the Iron Barbs to get any residual damage from contact moves, which we learned later on that actually mattered in some of the matchups. Power Whip, Leech Seed, and Protect. Ferrothorn was also a great addition for triple matchups. Just really great against holding it down against a lot of Pokemon that just didn't have favorable matchups to it, such as Calyrex Ice. Water types didn't like Ferrothorn. And it's just a really good Pokemon when you're able to get Leech Seed Protect stall going. Anyway, like I said, so how did I prepare for this? So I did what I call it starting over, which basically meant that I was trying to start from scratch, trying to rebuild my playing style, rebuild what I know, while also trying to knock out all of the bad habits that I was building up. So I played with a team that I had no context with or no prior experience playing with, which was, as I said, the Kyogre team. Did not play with it at all during Series 12. I tried out Kairo's Life Orb team. I didn't like how it felt. The team felt very wonky, so I ended up going with Brandon Badden's team just to try out the Assault Vest variant, and I preferred that mode a little bit more. I play tested both Wet Dog and Team Husky, my Kyurem White Zacian team, because that team is also very compelling. I love Kyurem White, I love what it did for me in Indy, but I also didn't want to just pick up this whole team and bank on whatever. I was like, alright, let's give them a fair shot. We'll let both teams play, give them some play testing, go for a couple days and see where that goes. And ultimately I chose Wet Dog. We just had slightly more consistent answers to matchups. Like Kyogre, for example, when it came to Trick Room, would be more favorable for me than, let's say, my Kyurem. So I just went down that route. And then for the actual team building, I played over 100 matches on Showdown, and I recorded them, and I watched the footage. Watching the footage on the bus, and for every reason when I'm on Greyhound, I just fall asleep, so I didn't get to watch all the matches, but it was still nice to have. I made adjustments to the team along the way. Like originally, I was trying out Zapdos, and then I tried out Thundurus and Therian just to see how that'll help us out, because against Regieleki and things like that, we were very weak, and we didn't have that many answers, so I wanted to try Voltosorb. Went back to just Zapdos. I just felt that, hey, we'll just take the risk. We tried out Bronzong on the team, because I think originally we had a Rillaboom, but we just didn't like it. Tried out Bronzong. Bronzong was really good, but then Ferrothorn came in and really put up work for me. And then I made flowcharts. I didn't complete my flowcharts, but I made them just to kind of remind me of my matchups that I wanted to do. And I also had practice matchups against Brain Bear JP and Phantom Saber. We shout out to them. They did help me out prepare for this. So notable matchups. We love Bring Your Sun. Like, this is the team on the left. If we saw this type of team, we really loved our chances of winning. Because, for one, if the team is running Thunderwave Grimmsnarl, you cannot hit Zapdos. 2, they're running Scary Face. Zapdos, while it will be slower, it can still live a G-Max Wildfire from Zards while we're able to get up screens for our Grimmsnarl. 3, if they don't lead Grimmsnarl or they just have an awkward matchup, Zapdos is faster than Zapdos speed ties with Charizard, but if we're able to swap in Kyogre with Zapdos Dynamax, we're able to get an Airstream up, and now we start to roll with Kyogre boosted up and with Zapdos boosted up. We enjoy Calyrex Ice Trick Room especially. Like, that matchup is really good for our team. We really was hoping we see some of that, because we just went from praying that we'll never see it to praying that we do find it in tournaments. Lunadon is a great matchup. Lunala does not like Scrappy for very obvious reasons, being times for weak to dark, and Moongeist Beam and Meteor Beam just not hitting hard against a dark fighting type in Scrappy. As well as Groudon doesn't like being intimidated. Plus, depending on how the interactions go with speeds, Groudon could be underspeeding Scrappy, and we get our Drain Punches off secondly in Trick Room. And then when Trick Room ends, Scrappy may still be faster, and now get the Drain Punch off. So yeah, Lunadon is really great for matchups for Scrappy. And then we have favorable matchups against Yveltal teams, because a lot of them were transitioning from Assault Vest to Life Orb, and while Life Orb is really threatening on Yveltal, our team could still very well handle it well, because we got AV on Kyogre, we got Speed Control with Zapdos, we got Speed Control on our Grimmsnarl and Screens. Those are matchups we really wanted. What we're weak to were Thundurus, both the Prankster and Defiant variant. We're weak to Regieleki or just really extremely hyper-offensive teams. I saw a lot of them on Showdown, and that's just the weakness of Showdown. If a team is very hyper-offensive or they're doing something obscure like they're faking special attacking Eleki and they really are physical, you can lose just like that. But hey, still something to be notable. Sleep Powder, Venusaur. Venusaur itself wasn't very problematic. It's just that when it came to us playing, a lot of my matchups, like at the tape, like Sinjal, we ended up having full turns of sleep. Rillaboom, for obvious reasons, same for Gastrodon and Ninja. In the right scenarios, we probably cannot win against them at all. Anyways, here goes the actual matchups that I had. I'm going to have to open up my notes and just read through them. I put the matchups, I put the outcomes down here, and let's just recap. So my round 1 opponent was against Grayson. And funny enough, Grayson actually worked for Nickelodeon. And this is his first tournament. I learned all this after the fact. But yeah, he was a cool cat. We played, and he was actually running a mirror matchup of Zashi and Kyogre. And this is one of the other matchups that are pretty bad for me, because I didn't see too many mirror matchups. And when I did, it came down to just who played better. So game 1, I tried to just go in and win with Speed Control, because I felt that I thought initially, looking at this team, that he was running a more hyper-offensive, maybe Scarf variant Kyogre, because the team wasn't really showing that, hey, it was a bulkier variant, or maybe it was Mystic Water. I thought it was just a Scarf Kyogre trying to just steamroll me. So I went with Zapdos and tried to Dynamax immediately and went from there. This ended up being a flaw, because later on in the tournament, later on in that first game, we learned that his Kyogre was Assault Vested. And the fact that he was able to survive my turns of Dynamax, hold out in the Dynamax's Kyogre, along with the screens that his Light Clay Grimmsnarl set up, it ended up biting us in the butt. And he was able to win just from the pure fact that he was patient with his Dynamax. So he ended up winning 0-2. Game 2, however, when we saw that he was running Assault Vest Kyogre, and he was running Light Clay with his Grimmsnarl, based on how long the screens lasted, we decided to make an adjustment. I wanted to stall out my Dynamax as much as I could. So we went into this matchup, and we just tried to play a slow stall-out game. In fact, I actually lost my Zashi in turn 1 because I made the incorrect call. Like, he said it was his first tournament, and I was thinking, like, oh, he must be a noob. I didn't think this guy would finish up the day 6-2. So I had to read that, like, hey, he'll swap out into Incineroar. I should probably hit a Behemoth Blade into his Kyogre. And I was like, nah, he's probably not going to do it. Let me Behemoth Blade the Grimmsnarl, because I thought he was going to set up screens. Ended up being incorrect. He did swap his Grimmsnarl out for Incineroar. He did take the Behemoth Blade really well, because obviously Incineroar resisted, and I'm at neutral. And then I got one-shotted by his Max Geyser. So then, yeah, I was kind of playing on my back heel in game 2, and I felt like game 2 was a little bit closer than what it could have been, but ultimately he ended up winning. He just had the screens late game and just ultimately won that out with his Zacian in the back. I swapped in Scrappy on my Kyogre. I knew he was running play rough, but for whatever reason I thought he would go for a Sacred Sword. I don't know why that was in my mind. I think it's because when I saw his play style, I was thinking about if I was in the Fuse. And obviously I'm not running play rough, so that slipped over my head. I swapped in Scrappy. I ended up losing Scrappy, and that ultimately kind of costed me when it came to game 2. And I lost both games 0-2. Oh well. Round 2 comes around and I end up playing Brooke, who was really nice. This is Pokemon BB on Twitch. She was really cool. This is her first tournament as well. And she was running an interesting Sun team that featured, as you can see, Leafeon and Groudon. And yeah, this is her first tournament. She was cool, was talking. She was mentioning Joseph Ugarte, which is going to be important later on. But yeah, we played. And the start of the game for this one, she ran Whimsicott and Groudon. And I led Grimmsnarl with Zapdos. So we both Dynamaxed. I Dynamaxed my Zapdos. She Dynamaxed her Groudon. And I went for Max Air. And I knocked her Whimsicott down to Sash. She went for Max Rockfall into my Zapdos, which is a really good call. But thankfully I had my screens up, and we were able to survive the Max Rockfall. And thanks to the chip from the Sandstorm, knocked out a Whimsicott. From there, it was kind of smooth sailing. She just brought in her Zacian and also she brought in Zacian and she also brought in her Incineroar, and we kind of just steamrolled those two because with Zapdos being charged up, she didn't get Tailwind up, and we were able to bring in Kyogre. It's a kind of easy win for us, game 1. I was feeling good because I was actually worried about like what the Leafeon could do. I was worried about what Gastrodon could do, and she did not bring either one of them game 1. Game 2, however, this was really interesting. So game 2 was kind of the same thing, except she went for Helping Hand with their Max Rockfall on Groudon. And we still went with our same play of Max Airstreaming. So from here, I swapped in turn 2, I swapped in my... So turn 1 I did Max Air, and I swapped out my Grimmsnarl for Kyogre, I believe. And then turn 2, I thought she would try to swap out and do it. She was going to do a certain play in my mind. I forget exactly what it is because it's almost been a month. But in my mind, I was thinking, let me swap out into Grimmsnarl so I can set up my screens, and then let me, use Detect on my Zapdos. That's what I was thinking. What I forgot that I did was I already clicked the move onto my Kyogre. And when I clicked for Grimmsnarl to swap in, I accidentally did it to my Dynamax Zapdos. So turn 2, I ended up swapping my Dynamax Zapdos on accident for Grimmsnarl. I even told her this was a misplay, but I told her I'm just going to roll with the punches. So yeah, things got dicey because he was able to set up Tailwind, and she was able to actually knock out both my Zapdos, my Grimmsnarl, and my Kyogre. But thankfully, when she Dynamaxed her Groudon, I was able to get a Leech Seed up with my Ferrothorn, who I brought this game. And thanks to Ferrothorn's ability to just protect and Leech Seed stall, and the fact that she wasn't running Heat Crash, I was able to actually play an interesting game where I was able to stall out her Groudon, I was able to stall out her Leafeon, who were her final 2 Pokemon. I got the Power Whip off, hit the Groudon, KO, and it came down to just Ferrothorn, Leafeon, and I pretty much knew I won this set. I hated that it came down to me Leech Seed Protect stalling, but yeah, I kind of knew I won this set. Her sun was over, so her Solar Blade had to be charged for 2 turns. I learned in this matchup that Iron Bar still activates even with Solar Blade, which I don't know how. I thought the animation shows it's a giant blade hitting them. I didn't know that procs Iron Bars, but sure. Ended up winning, and I felt good. And then round 3 happened, and when I saw who my matchup was, I almost fell over. Like my knees actually buckled a bit when I saw I was playing Joseph Ugarte for round 3. So for those who don't understand, round 3 of Indianapolis, I ended up playing Gary Keon. And at the time of making that recap video, I didn't know that this guy was also a beast. I saw at the Vancouver Regionals, and I saw in past events, Gary Keon was constantly making high marks. Like, you talk about top 32, top 24 at these events. So I ended up playing a really high-ranking player that early in the tournament back then. This time around, I'm playing against Joseph Ugarte, a top 5 player in North America. And yeah, we played. And usually he ran Evildon, and I was hoping that would be the case. But I saw that this was his team. Groudon, Zacian, with the Thundurus, Incineroar, Venusaur, and Bronzong. So game 1, it was kind of textbook. He Dynamaxed his Thundurus, and he kind of just beat me. I forget exactly how that went, but the way the matchup went, actually, I thought that there was a chance that I could actually force a game 3. He beat me 3-1 in the first round. Second game, oh my lord, I've never been checked this hard before in my life. Second game, he led in his Thunderous, and he also led his Groudon, I believe. So what he did was he swapped out Groudon for Incineroar, while I led Grimmsnarl and my Zacian. He swapped out Groudon for Incineroar, and when I went for my screens turn 1, he predicted that and just used Brick Break. He didn't Dynamax, he just went for Brick Break. And then he swapped out again, and he kept swapping out and Brick Breaking my screens until he forced me out into my unfavorable matchup, which was my Zapdos and Kyogre being out in the field, only from the down Dynamax. So what he did was he basically forced me to swap out and be in an awkward position until I brought the monster that he needed out. And when he did that, I just completely got decimated. It was so bad that I forgot to even Dynamax in game 2. He even commented asking me why did I not Dynamax my Kyogre, and I told him, I forgot. Yeah, that's how bad things were. Let's speed this up because I'm losing time. Round 4 was against Howchin. This is another person who was close to top cutting based on around round 5. His record was looking really good. So this was another really good opponent. It was a loss-win-loss. I don't remember exactly how this matchup went, but it came down ultimately to the fact that his Blastoise had Fake Out, which I was hoping that was not the case. Blastoise is also another bad matchup for us because Blastoise just hit hard, and if it carried a Wackenberry, we're really at a disadvantage against it. But yeah, his Blastoise had Fake Out, and yeah, he kind of just put in work. I lost 0-3 against him round 1. Round 2, I won 2-0 with Scrappy Kyogre on lead. So I think I faked out his Grimmsnarl, and then I just went for a Max Geyser to get the KO. But yeah, I ended up losing because he was just Dynamaxing his Landorus or his Thunderous. Both Pokemon, when they Dynamaxed, they got their speed boost in those matchups, and yeah, this became very problematic for me. I just don't remember how the matchup went. I wish I could just give more details, but basically, I've seen teams like this before, and I just don't have the best matchup against them. Thunderous, bad matchup for me. Blastoise, bad matchup. Grimmsnarl, just any type of Grimmsnarl is always problematic. This one was dual screens with Thunder Wave, and it was like clay, so you can tell that's problematic for my team. And then Reshiram. Reshiram, not very problematic in the grand scheme of things in terms of matchups, but it can be if I am in an awkward position. So I ended up losing this one. I was kind of sad because I was thinking I could have won game 3 if I played a little bit better, but I didn't. And then we had lunch break. I came back in round 5. I played against Peter. Now this one right here was an interesting matchup. So when I played against Peter, he led his Grimmsnarl and he led Reshiram, and he prioritized putting up his screens, and he Dynamaxed Reshiram. And he ended up just winning based off of that, boosting up his Reshiram, putting a lot of pressure on my team. And yeah, he ended up winning narrowly game 1, 0-1. And at this time, I was actually feeling kind of defeated. I thought that, yeah, I can't win this matchup. The first game was close on paper, but I just felt like I couldn't win this matchup. And then I remember like what I told myself during the lunch break. Like, hey, calm down, take some deep breaths, and remember, just be patient. Play with patience. Don't Dynamax immediately, and we got this. I was so patient in game 2 that I actually ended up winning without even using Dynamax. That's how crazy it was. And in game 3, all 3 games he led Grimmsnarl, Reshiram, all 3 games. And in game 3, he went for the same thing, and I was just playing patient. I ended up getting up my screens. I ended up lowering the speed of his Reshiram. Ended up getting Eerie Impulses on it. And yeah, we kind of just went from there. He ended up actually, so like his Dynamax is over, and he ended up finally getting a double KO against me. And I was thinking, okay, cool, we're down 3-2. That's what I was thinking. In reality, it was down 4-2. So we came down to my Grimmsnarl and Kyogre. He got rid of my Zacian and Zapdos. So Grimmsnarl and Kyogre in a 4v2. Alright. So we finally Dynamaxed my Kyogre. We went for, if I'm correct about this, what I did was I went for a Water Spout just to get the KO on one of his Pokemon, and then I finally Dynamaxed. And when I Dynamaxed, I was able to finally live a Wild Charge from this Thunderous. This is something I should have done in the Joseph Ugarte matchup. I didn't Dynamax my Kyogre, got one-shotted by Wild Charge. This time I Dynamaxed, we survived. And thanks to that, we were able to get the KO into his Reshiram. And then we were able, not Reshiram. We survived the wild charge. We did a ton of damage to them, and thanks to recoil alone, their Thunderous was guaranteed to fall. Recoil plus foul play. We ended up getting the KO there. We ended up getting the KO against their Grimmsnarl. We ended up getting the KO against their Reshiram. And Grimmsnarl ended up getting the final KO with foul play. So Grimmsnarl, who they were trying to pivot around that matchup, ended up getting the final KO, which is cool. Shout out to Brown Juan. He was happy when I told him about that. So yeah, that was a fun matchup. And then we get to round 6. And round 6 against Casper. Oh my lord. This is a doozy. In a good way. So game 6, as you can see, this team is very interesting. You can see how it could be problematic. He led Sableye, Kyurem White. He did this all 3 games. And he Dynamaxed his Sableye. He Dynamaxed his Kyurem White. He revealed that his Sableye was running Fake Out and Ally Switch. And I ultimately ended up just losing to that. Getting Ally Switched. His Kyurem was going for a ton of damage. He ended up winning 0-3 game 1. He also ended up getting a Sleep Powder. Apparently, I wrote on here. Yeah, he did, because I ended up writing F Sleep Powder. So, yeah. Ended up losing to just Fake Out, Ally Swiss Cheese, Kyurem White doing Kyurem White things, and Venusaur Sleep Powders. So then game 2, we swapped it up. I ended up leading. I forget how I led against this, but the matchup came down to me knocking out his Sableye. He brought out his Ditto while I had my Zacian out, and his Ditto copied my Zacian. And this game really dicey. So for those who don't understand, Ditto, when it uses Imposter, it copies the stats of the opposing Pokemon, as well as if it's running Scarf, it has the Choice Scarf boost on it. So my Zacian was already a +1, because I do remember I Dynamaxed my Zapdos and gave it a +1 with Max Air. So essentially, this meant that Ditto and my Zacian were speed time. And again, this Kyurem White was Dynamaxed. The only way I could win this is if I got rid of his Kyurem White. That's what it looked like on paper. Part of me was thinking about, like, hey, let's just play it safe. Let's not even risk it. Because I didn't want to risk a speed tie and then ultimately losing the set. But I was like, you know what? Screw it. We have to do this. And I went for my Behemoth Blade. I ended up actually winning the speed tie against the Ditto. Got the one-shot into the Kyurem. And we ended up just winning from there. Because while the Zacian was, while the Zacian copied us, it locked itself into Behemoth Blade. And we ended up just winning because we just had a favorable matchup against that. And then game 3 happened. And game 3, we ended up taking care of the Kyurem, and I was able to put myself in a really nice position against their team. And I believe I had Kyogre and Zapdos out, and we were able to get +1 speed into both my Pokemon, and his final Pokemon ended up being his Groudon and his Ditto. When his Ditto came in, it copied my Zapdos. This is very important to remember, y'all. He copied my Zapdos, and he also won the Weather War because his Groudon came in after. His Groudon came in on a switch-in from Pokemon we knocked out. So they were able to get a double KO against my team. And all I had left was Zacian. So I brought my Zacian out, and I was thinking I lost. They copied my Zapdos. They got a +1 speed in the Zapdos, plus the Scarf. And I could also deal with, I think, 60-75% health Groudon. I thought that I lost. But then I told myself, no, let's think about this. We got a way to get out of this. And lo and behold, I remembered one weakness to Ditto. And Ditto's weakness is, when it uses Imposter/Transform, it only has 5 PP for the move that is copied. And since we knew this Ditto was choice locked, it was confirmed based on how they played in the previous 2 games, and even my opponent's comment about me being lucky about my speed tie win, all but confirmed that this Ditto was running indeed a choice item. So what I did was, they used Thunderbolt to get one of the KOs on my KO on my Kyogre, and they knocked out my Groudon. They used their Groudon to knock out my Zapdos. Okay? They used 1 Thunderbolt already out of the 5 they could with Ditto. I swapped in Zacian. I used Protect. That was turn 2 of them using Thunderbolt. Turn 3, I was able to get the KO into the Groudon by hitting it with, I forget either Behemoth Blade or Sacred. Either way, KO'd on Groudon. Got hit by a T-Bolt. That was number 3 of the Thunderbolts. Okay, I'm mistaking it. So we swapped in, got the KO on Groudon, protected, took a Thunderbolt, and we tried to substitute. We tried to substitute after the 4th Thunderbolt that we took, but our health was way too low to actually use substitute. So I was thinking we lost. I protected my the 5th turn, and now the Zapdos was forced to struggle. And I thought I still lost because I was at 30 HP, and Zapdos had to struggle. And when we saw the damage of the Zapdos, I realized I could win. The reason this is very dicey is because, like I said earlier, if we scroll back, the Zapdos I was using was my shiny Zapdos I got from Dynamax Adventures, meaning that this Zapdos just so happened to have perfect attack IVs. So that means that it was doing more damage than normal with the struggles that it was doing. Someone reminded me this after the fact from the match, which made it even more insane. So when he went for struggle, he did like 5-10 damage, and I was like, oh man, I thought I won. Like, I kid you not, I leaned forward like I was rallied, like that rallied meme, realizing I just won the match when I probably shouldn't have. I ended up hitting him with a Behemoth Blade, and I ended up getting hit with Static. I got hit with Static as his Zapdos was forced to struggle. And then finally he went for his final struggle, which ended up getting the KO on him, and I lived with 4 HP. 4 HP, everybody. That means if any of his previous attacks had a higher roll into my Zacian, I would have lost. I ended up winning an entire set based on a speed tie with my Zacian, as well as 4 HP. I made mistakes, I got cheesed out, and yet we still somehow won that round. It was insane. If those ever matched to be put on stream, that would have been the one right there. Because me and Casper, we went to war. Same for me and Peter. I'm not going to lie. Those matchups were fun, but very, very stressful. Next, round 7, we ended up playing Nicholas, who was Kanto VGC. We actually ate lunch together, funny enough, and we ended up pairing against each other. That's the second time in 3 tournaments that's happened where I ate lunch with somebody and we ended up competing in a tournament. But funny enough, all 3 regionals I competed at, I ended up competing against somebody and having lunch with them at some point. So, yeah. This is one of the teams that I've seen like once or twice when I play tested on Showdown. This is a very hyper-offensive team. This Grimmsnarl ended up running Fake Out, Thunder Wave, and Trick with Iron Ball. And he also has Spirit Break. And he led with the Cinderace, which Libero and Life Orb was just decimating my team. Like, I ended up just losing hard because of that. The hyper-offensive was real. He brought Calyrex Shadow Rider in the back, and he also brought his Zacian. Like, just that 4 combination right there, Grimmsnarl, Cinderace, Zacian, Calyrex Shadow, that's a lot of pressure to go up against, especially when he could just Iron Ball your Dynamax user who has speed control, and the rest of your team is either slower, or they just take a lot of damage from the opposing Pokemon. I ended up losing game 1. Game 2, it was a little bit better for me. Like, I was Dynamaxing my Zapdos sooner. I was trying to get my speed up. And I ended up max guarding my final turn of Dynamax when I thought that he would Sucker Punch me. He ultimately did not. Had I just went for all 3 turns of Air Boost, Max Airstream, my Zapdos would have been the fastest thing in the game. And we potentially could have won the game too. But we ended up losing. And I was kind of sad, but at the same time, it's like I couldn't do anything against this matchup. So now I was 3-4. We went into our final matchup, which was against Mason. And this one right here, you might as well just consider Milwaukee a giant meme, the way everything just played out. Before my round 8 matchup, in my Discord, I texted people telling like, hey, I'm about to play my last round, let's get this bread, let's go 4-4. And then my Berserker that I had leveled up, and I said, hey, Leaf Erickson, I'm going to win this one for you. And funny enough, I ended up playing against a Berserker. And yeah, this was quite the interesting matchup. So my opponent's strategy was to use Berserker with Steely Spirit to boost Steel-type moves of his team. And his Berserker ended up having Fake Out, Gyro Ball, U-Turn, and Focus Sash. I didn't even know it got U-Turn. But yeah, this is what he was running. He Dynamaxed his Life Orb Dialga and was using the Steel Spike boost to just get big KOs on my team. We were able to overcome it game 1, but what really ultimately lost me the matchup was the fact that he had Shedinja come in, and he knocked out all my Pokemon that could actually hit Shedinja. So I had to just forfeit game 1. Game 2, however, we were able to make the right adjustments. I brought in Scrappy, and that's when he revealed Protect on his Berserker. This thing was very, very annoying. I'm not going to lie. So we were able to actually put in pressure on him. We were able to chip away at the Dialga. We were able to put a lot of pressure into the Berserker, and we were able to win game 2 because we brought my Ferrothorn this time, and Ferrothorn's Iron Barbs alone means that their Shedinja cannot attack me. Leech Seed was used to actually knock out the Shedinja, funny enough, and we ended up just winning because we just brought the right Pokemon for this. And in game 3, I led Zapdos Kyogre, and I was trying to just go for Eerie Impulse. I thought I could get the Eerie Impulse and just roll from there. The opponent actually faked out my Zapdos and got the KO with a Max Rockfall. My jaw actually kind of dropped, but thankfully I had the mask on and not show it, because I was hoping I'd get an Eerie Impulse off on the Dialga, and we would just win from there. But yeah, that happened. And we were still able to do well. We were able to do damage into their Pokemon. We played a little bit patiently. We stalled out when we were going for a Dynamax. And still, I thought that I lost because I ended up losing my Ferrothorn. He targeted down my Ferrothorn when I thought he wouldn't. I was even thinking to myself that he may do it, but I thought that nah, he'll just ignore it. Got the KO on it. And I thought I lost because Ferrothorn is my only other answer besides Zapdos that I brought this game that could actually touch the ninja. Thankfully, he ended up bringing Incineroar, and I thought I had a chance because it was Zacian versus Incineroar and Berserker. But Berserker had Gyro Ball, and Gyro Ball's doing a ton of damage to me, and I ended up ultimately losing. So I ended up going 3-5. And also, I should note that, yeah, round 8, I actually I G-maxed my Grimmsnarl. So, yep, I did that in tournament. So, yeah, we'll talk about how I felt in a minute. But before we get into this, let me show you Pokemon I did not face. So, the Pokemon that you see right here, we gotta move Venusaur. I forgot I faced Venusaur at some point in the tournament. But the top row are Pokemon that I just did not see at all. And the second row are Pokemon that I seen in Team Preview, but I ended up not facing them. I gotta take Venusaur out of there, obviously, because I did mention Venusaur. But, yeah, just look at this list. Think about all the Pokemon that you see on this list. Think about either if you play Series 12 or if you've seen any Series 12 content, how many times you've seen some of these Pokemon, and realize I did not face against any of them. In fact, some of these Pokemon I spent a lot of time preparing for, and yet I did not see them at all in tournament. And these are restrictors I did not see. Obviously, when you play 8 rounds, you're not going to see every restricted Pokemon. That's just unreasonable to think about. But it's funny how Palkia, a Trick Room setter, I didn't see that. I mentioned how Lunadon, mentioned how Yveltal are Pokemon that I have favorable matchups against. Did not see them at all in tournament. Solgaleo and Necrozma, they're picking up on usage. Did not see those either. And those are favorable. Those are 50-50 matchups right there, I would say. So, yeah. Overall thoughts. I underperformed, but I did better than I did at Indianapolis. Like, I made a lot of clutch plays. I was doing way better. I didn't make as many dumb mistakes as I did when I played in Indianapolis. In fact, a lot of things I learned from Indy used to help me have some success here in Milwaukee. I had very difficulty matchups. As you can see, I played against one person who ended up going 6-2 in this first tournament. I played against Twitch streamers. I played against literally a top 5 player in North America. I ended up playing against just people who were just putting up crazy numbers. Kanto BGC, I ended up checking out his Twitter and everything. He was putting up high numbers in on the ranked ladder. So I had better difficulty matchups. I prepared for the meta, but I got blindsided by the matchups I had. As you saw from the list that I showed you guys, and just the breakdown, even just the visual representation of Pokemon I missed, I did not see at all. I made mistakes throughout the tournament, and I was not confident in my reads. Like, I was just not using my Dynamax early on as efficiently as I could. I told you, I was not patient at game 1 of round 1 with my Dynamax. I ended up accidentally swapping out my Dynamax Pokemon round 2. Round 3, I forgot the Dynamax. So, yeah, I just felt like I wasn't using Dynamax to the fullest extent early on. I got better as the tournament went on, but early on, I was just having a very shaky start. Like I said, I still made some key plays. Like, I found out my win con against, the Ditto team was just PP stall them out, which is something I'd never done before, but I ended up having to do that. That was my win con. Ended up winning using Leech Seed against a Shedinja. I ended up having some interactions involving Iron Barbs and just being really creative on how I was going to win. So I did make some very good key plays that are something that should be admired, in my opinion. And, yeah. At first, I was really down about this, and I was really down at how people reacted to just how my performance went. And then I was recently watching like a podcast from years ago, and a game director said that, hey, people only judge the product that's on the shelves. And what he means by that is, like, the work that, developers put into making a video game, people don't understand that, nor do many of them even care. So, you can put a ton of hours into something, but if it's subpar, people are going to complain, and people are going to just be unsatisfied with it. And that is very true. Like, as I sit here talking about this, I can tell friends, I can tell family, and without context, they see that I went 3-5, they'll just say, like, oh, you underperformed, you didn't do well, you need to train harder. And, hell, to some of you who are watching this video, you may even have that mentality. But, when I look back at all the training I put into this, for just this tournament and just the previous ones, I have to have some type of pride in what I did, because no one necessarily saw the work I put into. No one was sitting here watching me play 20 plus hours of just straight up showdown, doing damage calcs, making sure the team was working properly, doing research on VGC stats, Pickalytics or Victory Road, doing research, just watching a ton of tape. People weren't there physically seeing what I did. So while I underperformed, I can't be mad if someone has said that, like, hey, we see what you did in tournament and it wasn't adequate. Now I'm just trying to get into a place where I can feel like, hey, I know what I did, and while I'm disappointed in how I performed, I still did something that you guys didn't do, or I did something that took a lot of effort in my own play, my own abilities. I talked about this back in April, and I guess I'll reveal it. Like, I talked about this in April. I took like a mini little break from just being me, and like I was just feeling depressed. Partially about Pokemon, but mostly about life. And I was just feeling like I just been underachieving. I haven't been hitting my strides. I haven't been doing certain things, and I was really just feeling it. Like, man, I even like made a video I posted in my own Discord. Just told people like, hey, you can watch it if you want. Don't have to. No big deal. And I sent it to some people. But yeah, at that time I was really feeling it, and it kind of leaked into how I played in Indianapolis. But I look back to how I felt when I was back in that dark place to now. Like, I'm still feeling very hopeful about the future, and I'm still feeling good about like all the work I put into this generation. So while people are going to judge like what happens on paper and what I'm telling them, at the end of the day, I know that, hey, I put the hours in, and if all things didn't work out for me, they're going to work out in the future. So what's next for me? Well, now I'm in the off season. That means I'm just playing various video games, and I'm taking a break from Pokemon. I've just been focusing on my school and my working. I'm letting my heart decide when I get back into BGC. So usually I let my mind decide things, but this time I let my heart. That means that, hey, I could be taking a break for up to just 2 days from now after this recording, or I could be taking a break for the next 2 months. We'll find out later. Of course, I didn't forget to do the Mr. Maractus stream. We're gonna have that happen. Like, don't worry about that. And I'm gonna switch on my training methods. Okay. So, I'm going to switch up my training methods. What I mean by that is, I'm not no bumbling fool. I understand that, like, hey, I understood midway through Indianapolis Regionals that the training I done was not adequate for what was going on. Now, I don't know if I'll ever do, like, a deep dive looking into, like, just the overall Series 12 meta or just this generation's meta. Like, this generation of VGC. But, yeah, just the training method I was doing, it just wasn't working for this. Now, at the start of Gen 8, when I was going out to compete in tournaments, I was on an upward trajectory, As I competed, my results started to get better and better. I ended up making a top cut, and my results, the way I was just playing, was just getting better. I was getting acclimated to playing a tournament, and we were just seeing the results come in. And clearly, just the way I practice and how I approach things just wasn't adequate for what's going on right now. So, I'm not no bumbling fool. I understand that, like, what I was doing was not enough for what was going on, but I didn't want to switch it up, if that makes sense. Let me break it down to you. So, when it comes to like athletes or just students in school, the way you train is very important. The way you study is very important. If you try to do something and switch it up at the last minute, it can actually have an adverse effect. So let's say an athlete eats a certain breakfast. Let's say he eats eggs, he eats toast, he drinks a protein shake. Alright? That's his breakfast before he goes out to train. If before a big event he decided, you know what, I'm gonna eat oatmeal, I'm gonna drink this herbal tea, I'm gonna eat a muffin. Well, he may end up having cramps. He may end up having his stomach aching a bit. He may end up just overall performing being a little bit more sluggish than what he's used to. And that's because what he was used to for his body changed at the last minute, and now his body has to adjust to what he just did at the last minute. So what I'm trying to say is, when you stick to something that's very consistent, it's important to stick to that instead of just trying to switch it up at the last minute and banking on it working. So while I knew like, hey, what I was doing may not have been enough to get me over the hump, I just didn't want to switch it up in just a month and a half training just to bank on having good success. I was like, look, let me just kick it up to 11 and just hope for the best. And, it didn't work out. And since Collinsville, I've been asking people like, hey, how do you train? How do you prepare for events? And I've been taking notes. Some people showed me like they do spreadsheets of like Pokemon information. Some people told me like they watch a ton of previous previous tournaments and study from that. Some people told me they played on Showdown. Some people told me they played on Ranked exclusively. Some people told me just different type of things. And I've been taking notes of that. And I'm going to be using that to try to figure out what's going to work for me in the future for my training. So for anyone who says like, hey, you need to train harder, you need to do this and that, trust me, I already know. I'm the one living the reality. I know what I need to do, or what I need to try and change. And also, I'm going to be reaching out to different people. Like, I've been meeting a lot of people in the BTC community, but I just haven't been reaching out to them. Partially because like I just don't, I'm kind of scared to just reach out and just ask them to hate how to play. But now I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to branch out more. I'm trying to be a little bit more active. I'm trying to reach out to different people and see, like, hey, go get some matches going, and then let's go from there. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that, and I'm looking forward to just playing when the next season kicks up. So yeah, that's it for me, y'all. This is way longer than I wanted to be, but I kind of wanted to be detailed. I want to thank y'all for watching this video. Let me know down below how y'all feel about this. Y'all gonna try out the team? Like I said, it's already outdated, but yeah. Let me know any thoughts down below. Other than that, I'm just gonna get out of here and enjoy life. Stay safe out there, y'all. Have a happy 4th of July weekend if you celebrate. If you don't, oh well. Bye.